Hello people of the internet, it's Amanda, and for today's video, I'm here to talk about the live-action Kaguya-sama Love is War mini episodes that they just released recently. Seen the 5 mini episodes in Amazon Prime, and what's interesting about this is when they announced it, I didn't really expect that they're going to do this in anticipation of the sequel to the 2019 film that's happening in August of this year. And when I read through the descriptions of each of the mini episodes, I figured finally they're referencing sort of like the gaps that were in season 1 to season 2, but mostly season 1, I think, that weren't featured in the first film. So in the first film, they focused more on some of the bigger inside jokes if you watch the anime or if you've read the manga, and then some bigger arc surrounding that. So it's quite understandable why some of like the minor gags from the anime and the manga weren't included in the first film. So probably they did this to sort of like fill in those gaps. And at the same time, I read an interview where Hirano Sho mentioned that the second film, as much as they're still going for the comedic value that's very original to the source material, they are going a bit into the more romantic and serious route for this sequel, and that's sort of understandable considering that by season 2 to season 3, it's definitely developed into, like, there are still a lot of like gags and caricatures, you know, things happening in the storyline, but at the same time, like, we started to unravel a lot of like backstories and a lot of more mature and romantic stuff happening within the cast members for the succeeding seasons in the source material. So it's quite understandable that they're also doing the same thing for the sequel of the film. Now, anyways, with that said, so just gonna focus on the mini episodes for this one. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are 5 mini episodes. More or less, like, the longest one is 10 minutes, and then the others are more around like 8-9 minutes tops. And again, it just focuses on like the everyday happenings within the student council room. So it's really more of the more random storylines in the source material that they gathered. I didn't exactly like jot down which episodes or which manga chapters they referred to, but I think like if you're familiar with the source material itself, then you would know which episodes this would be. But even if you haven't really seen the anime or read the manga, these are still quite enjoyable mini episodes, and you'll be able to grasp what it's about, because that's basically what most of the Kaguya-sama arc is like. It's really more of just like chops of you know, the battle between Shirogane and Shinomiya, and them forcing the other person to confess, and these ones that they picked doesn't exactly contribute to like the bigger arcs of the story. So these are like fine as standalones, if you get what I mean. So anyway, so for the first episode, it's the episode where Shirogane brings a homemade bento to the student council room for his lunch, obviously. And when Shinomiya sees it, she wants to have a try, because obviously, like, you know how it is when we have crushes and everything like that, and we want to, you know, taste their homemade cooking or something. Like, there's that youthful, teenage, jittery vibe that comes along with that particular feeling. And throughout the entire thing, like, Shinomiya, you know, she obviously, with the brain battle going on between them, she couldn't just ask him in a friendly manner to, you know, let her have a taste of his bento. But then obviously we get Fujiwara entering and prancing inside the room and sort of like ruining the mood for both of them. And she obviously, because everything is just nonchalant with her, she asks about, you know, Shirogane's bento. Shirogane sort of like shares the bento with her. And what's funny about this episode, even in the anime, is how Shinomiya sort of like, she's ready to get there and just end everything with Fujiwara right then and there because of how annoyed she is at, how things are going. With the whole plotting thing, the next day, what she does is she brings her own bento in the hopes of, Shirogane wanting to like exchange some food here and there with her, given that her bento is like something that's really grand with like lobsters and oysters and anything like that. But given that Shirogane is obviously like one step ahead of her, sort of like figures things out, and that's that. However, Shirogane also notices the way that Shinomiya is sort of like Shinomiya is basically like there's something going on here, especially with Fujiwara. Whenever he's looking at how Shinomiya is reacting to Fujiwara being so nonchalant about the entire thing, and so in the end, Shirogane just ends up, eating his bento on his own, leaving the room, and then with Shinomiya feeling so defeated and everything like that, the episode still ends with Fujiwara offering the octopus-shaped sausage or wiener to Kaguya, and that's basically that. Like, that's the relationship in a nutshell in this particular episode. Again, it's just a very, very cute episode. And it's that classic, back and forth of like, one thing that I can say is that they really, really, really followed the anime / the manga closely for this one. Like the dialogue, everything, even the framing of some of the scenes, and obviously given how they look and how they embody the characters, you sort of like just get dragged into the entire thing. Like for me personally, even if I found the last part of the first film a bit cringy, like good kind of cringe, this one just felt very natural to how natural things can get. But yeah, like even from the first episode itself, it's really, really fun. Then we move on to the second episode, which is the NG or no good word game. Figure out who will do this errand for the student council. And with both Shinomiya and Shirogane, wanting to spend time together, use that as an excuse to hang out with each other. They sort of like do the entire thing where Fujiwara gets in between, and what they ended up doing to settle everything is this no good or NG word game. Now the objective of the game is basically for like you're going to write a word in a piece of paper, then exchange it with the players, and as much as possible are going to trick them into saying the word that they can't see, or the word that they're holding up against their forehead. So they're going to force them to say it. When they say it, obviously they lose, you win. And that's basically like what's the funniest thing about this episode, and I feel like it's very similar to the anime, is Fujiwara is definitely the main player or the main highlight of this particular mini storyline. Does the whole manipulation thing really, really nicely. Like Fujiwara is definitely one of those characters that, she's very cunning and everything like that, but you still love her anyways. The third episode is a love psychology test thing where obviously like with all of Shinomiya's plans to sort of like find out Shirogane's preferences, stuff like that. So she sort of like tries to manipulate Fujiwara once again by having her get this love psychology book, and obviously with Fujiwara's curiosity and just wanting to meddle into everyone's lives, she tries to sort of like pinpoint or ask certain questions to sort of like corner the members of the student council, oblivious to the fact that it was all a ploy by Shinomiya. However, it sort of like obviously backfires a bit because Shirogane like overthinks into the situation, knowing that if he says something, then it might end up, him giving the impression that he likes Shinomiya, even if he actually does. And so he goes to the safe route and says that, the person that he actually really likes a lot is his sister, obviously in a platonic manner, and stuff like that. And that's basically just how that episode, like the third episode, went. Again, it's a very, very short episode, and it's just it's just good fun. Now, what I like about this series of mini episodes is for the fourth and the fifth episode, they actually focused on some of my favorites that are the more lighthearted episodes from the manga/anime. Because obviously, I have favorite episodes that are a lot more centered on the heavier arcs of the storyline. But for these ones, these are the lighthearted ones that are definitely focuses more on the romance part between the two main characters. Now, for episode 4, so it's the cake war episode, which is very special to me because I personally love strawberries. I love strawberry shortcake, and this episode starts off with them fighting off who will get the last piece of a strawberry shortcake, and they call it what's interesting is they keep on pushing and pulling with one another, who's going to get the last piece and what. And then eventually, in between the arguments, what came up was the reason why Shirogane wants Shinomiya to get the last piece of the cake was when they were still new to the whole student council thing. They were sort of talking to each other about stuff, and he sort of asked her if there's anything else that she likes, because she always looks super cold and blank and anything like that. And the only thing that she answered was strawberry shortcake. So that's the reason why he wanted to give it to her. And obviously, Shinomiya had a moment where she was all flustered, and she really was sort of he remembers that from so long ago. But then she goes back and retaliates in usual fashion, telling him that the reason why she wanted him to have it was there was this one time during Christmas, around Christmas time, when they were both in the student council room. She asks him, what are you doing for Christmas, or what are plans for Christmas? And he said that he's working part-time, and since they're not really that well off, so stuff like that, even the money that he receives for Christmas and everything like that, he just spends on books for studying. And so Shinomiya sort of feels bad that, strawberry shortcake is sort of that festive dessert thing, and that's the reason why she wanted to give it to him. And it's just sort of cute, but obviously, given how this whole back and forth thing took forever, just when they're about to sort of give a forkful or a spoonful to one another, Fujiwara and Ishigami barges into the room and sort of ruins the mood for both of them. And again, part of the comic relief of the entire thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the heart fluttering moment already left. When that happened, that entire exchange, I absolutely loved it from the anime, and I love seeing it in this live action mini episode. Last but not the least is, oh my gosh, this one is definitely one of my favorites. Again, lighthearted episodes, love this. Shinomiya's plans for Shirogane's birthday. Now, this one is definitely a lot longer in the anime/manga, but here they just zoomed in on the cake itself. What Shinomiya did was she commissioned a large cake for Shirogane's birthday, and then Hayasaka, who is Shinomiya's sort of personal butler, bodyguard, friend, sort of found the entire thing ridiculous. She just couldn't understand, she's just so tired of both of them just going back and forth and doing all these things, but besides, just confessing to one another. So she's like, this entire idea is so ridiculous, and the cake is super large and crazy. And with that, Shinomiya had a realization, and that's why she sort of had this inner court inside her head, with the stupid or the happy-go-lucky Kaguya on one hand telling her that, you should just go ahead and do it. And then there's the Ice Queen, cold Kaguya, telling her that, you shouldn't do it because are you forgetting, why we're here in the first place? And then in the end, there's also like the child Kaguya who sort of like just balance everything out. And in the end result was really, really cute. It was just her, offering Shirogane a piece of cake, just one small piece from that massive cake that she had commissioned, and a fan with calligraphy. Now, what's interesting about the calligraphy is, I remember they sort of like explained it in anime as well, and they did explain it in the live action one as well. So the calligraphy reads Masen Tekken, which just in general basically describes, refers to how one's diligence or one's unwavering resolve towards education and studying is like it's a virtue that goes with, having doing all these things for one's education or one's studies, which is basically what Shirogane's character is all about. So just that, those two thoughts, that's super cute. But then obviously in full Kaguya-sama fashion, there has to be a gag where Kaguya tells Shirogane, don't open that door. There's this one door that's sealed, and what's hiding behind that is the massive cake that she actually prepared for him. So yeah, and of course, Shirogane just agrees to that. Shinomiya leaves the room bashfully, mission accomplished. Shirogane expresses how happy he was and how ecstatic he was at receiving the gift, and especially something that's, that's well thought out. It's not necessarily the grandness of it. He didn't really see the grandness of the cake, but just the idea of, Shinomiya giving him these gifts. He mentioned, Rishi, so he's really, really happy, and he even asked, what are these feelings? And that's a super, super cute moment. And then Shinomiya on the other side of the door, she was so just exhausted but feel accomplished, and Hayasaka sort of pats her in the head and tells her that she did a good job. And that's that. Now, what's interesting about this is the entire thing. I remember it so vividly happening in the manga the same way. It's just that, it's literally them in 3D, 4D mode doing this. And they really pulled it off, not just because of the visuals, but because of how, I don't know, how committed everyone was in the roles and how ridiculous anyone is willing to go in terms of expressions, in terms of just everything. And I mentioned this before, but Haito Kawai, who is the director for this film, is also known for directing the likes of, Nisekoi live action, where it's really on the dot when it comes to the details, from the anime, from the looks to everything. So it kind of explains a lot why it sort of feels like we're transported into the actual vibe of Kaguya-sama from the anime. But yeah, overall, I absolutely, this is fun. I absolutely love the mini episodes. I'm super excited because apparently King and Prince, there's sort of a leak that happened that shows, the actual trailer with the new theme song that is sung by the group for the sequel. So that's really, really fun. And I also saw that they're going to focus more on the school festival arc for the movie, which includes some of my favorite arcs, like Ishigami's arc is there, and then I wouldn't spoil the others, but definitely something to look forward to. So this definitely, just to fill in those small little details from the first couple of seasons that weren't in the first film, just to give us a little bit more context on the relationship of each character when they're within the context of just, the student council room. This is definitely fun. They did a good job in terms of shortening some of the longer episodes, like the birthday one, but still zoom in on the important details or the important interactions or messages within that. And I think one of the main highlights for me is at the end of every mini episode, Ishigami, Shinomiya, Shirogane, and Fujiwara, they're all dancing to Koi Wazurai, and I also still love it, especially Kanna. Like, I love seeing her because it brings out, you know, her idol past. I really like Koi Wazurai's choreography with Kanna. Combination of her and Hirano Sho. For this one, they're two of my they're my favorites. So definitely looking forward to this film yet again. I mean, I had mixed feelings when it was announced because obviously, like, after Miman, I was sort of like expecting a different kind of project for Hirano Sho, but still, like, given how everything is right now and given the arc of the second film, it's something to look forward to, and I'm on board. So yeah. Now, as I mentioned, so yeah, definitely a talkative video as it is here on my channel, but I don't know, have you seen these mini episodes? Are you looking forward to the sequel of the film premiering on August? Obviously, like, since we're overseas, so we might be able to just see the entire thing once the DVD is out. But yeah, but tell me your thoughts about even the first film. Like, let's talk about stuff about this down in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon in a new one.